everybody, and welcome back to Global PayFest 26. I am Natalie Lloyd from JGA Recruitment Group, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by my good friend and Global Payroll Executive, Vic O'Callaghan, for our Portugal session, which covers what I would say is quite an underrated topic of what to do 6 months before your payroll implementation and why that go live isn't the end. So welcome, Vic. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Really excited to be with you today, and obviously talking about my favourite subject, which is payroll implementation and going lives, and really how you're going to be able to prepare for that as well.
Amazing. And Vic, I wondered if you could just give us a few key takeaways of what people can expect from today's session.
Sure. I think it's really, I really want people to get out of this session a bit of an idea about how you can really plan for this. There is an awful lot of people out there that will be considering changing their softwares, going to a new provider, or even consolidating those. Maybe they've got a lot of separate providers and looking now for a global one. And it's really, I want people to come away from this and have a think about, okay, did I really think about that before starting an implementation, or something we're going to start next year? I now have a bit of an idea about how I should be planning for that, and a few key takeaways.
Absolutely. Like you said, there's going to be people watching this who are at that stage, who are making those decisions, or even they've kind of started the process, but it's their first time and they've not got all of that experience under their belt so far.
Yeah.
So Vic, you've done this time and time again. You've led global payroll implementations at huge scales. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions that companies have about payroll implementation?
I think a lot of people think that start of that implementation, I'm now going to start, is when you sign that contract. So you've made the decision, you've found your new provider, maybe you've gone through that stage of choosing one, and that day one is I've signed on that contract and this is where it all begins. And I really think you've got to go back a lot further than that. You've got to go back a good 6, 12 months maybe to really have a think about it and go, right, have I planned that? Have I really started to have a think about what I want to get out of my new software? Because it isn't just about the tech. And that is one of what I think is a real big misconception out there, is it's all about the tech. And really it's all about, I think, the start of it is the planning. So one of the first things that people think about is, have you actually really had a look at what your current processes are like? What does your current payroll currently look like? If so, let's map it out first of all. So grab all your payroll team together, they may be remotely, and really start to look at how your current processes are. And I'll say this as part of pre-sales to a lot of clients that I'll speak to, is this may be the first time that you've actually sat down more recently and thought about what your payroll currently looks like. So who are those key people that you actually work with? What do you need to provide maybe to your finance team? What do you need to provide to your benefits companies as well? Now that could be reports, it could be data, it could be bringing in your HR team as well. So I would say really sit down and map out what all those key processes really look like. To really be able to sit there and think, I really want the most success out of this is, it doesn't all, payroll and payroll implementation isn't about that signing that contract, and that is my day one. Think about it 6 months beforehand. Think about it 12 months beforehand, and it's all in the preparation phases beforehand. And really, if you get that prep working beforehand, you're more likely to have a more successful implementation and the stabilization period after that as well.
For sure. And Vic, when you're going through this process, you're at the very beginning. Who should be involved in that decision making?
Yeah, I mean, I see it an awful lot whereby the people who are coming onto those sales calls, who are bringing it to the sales teams, and not actually the people that are involved in the payroll. Now, there's got to be a level there. You've got to bring in those key decision makers. Maybe you've got a head of finance. Maybe you've got a head of payroll. And they're going to be the ones that are going to take that decision and take it maybe to a CFO and they want the sign off. But I really believe that when you're on those sales calls, you should really be bringing in your payroll team into that. Now, I've been involved with implementations whereby it's not until they've signed on the dotted line, they've then started the implementation, and then they've brought in the payroll teams. And those payroll teams are really guarded. Like, we didn't get a choice in you. We didn't get to choose you. We didn't know about you, first of all. And it really starts a quite an uncomfortable conversation. Like, hey, we've been chosen as your new provider. This is us. So I would prefer to, yeah, I do believe you've got to have those key decision makers on those calls when you're looking for a new provider, but please try and involve your payroll teams as well. And that could be your payroll. And if you can get payroll and HR in there, even better. So I would say, certainly when you've had those first calls with your sales team, and now you're really starting to talk about the demo, talk with the implementation teams as well. Really at that stage, bring in the people who are really going to be involved in the actual payroll, because it's really where you're going to get that key buy-in. You're going to find out, do they like the software? They're the ones who are going to know, is this going to work for me on a day-to-day basis? And they may have a wish list. I call it a wish list. You know, these are the key things that I really want this new software to be able to do for me. Or key processes. Or are you going to be able to take on all them current tasks for me as well? So some of those you're not really going to find out unless you really start to involve your payroll team as well. So absolutely, they need to be involved.
Absolutely. And are the payroll teams able to kind of unlock some of that information that maybe a sales team is holding back? I know that, you know, when you're going to pick a system, it's kind of the same for picking anything, isn't it? The salespeople are always going to tell you that they're great. But how do you work out whether they're great for you?
I love working with sales teams, and I would say to anybody, really, you know, certainly in my position, when you work between those teams of implementation and within sales and pre-sales as well, the sales teams, I adore working with sales teams. You really find out what it is. But how do you say it? Sales teams will say, this is great, and it can do this, and it can do this, and it can do all of these amazing things. They're going to say that. I love seeing sales teams that really try and dig a bit deeper as well. So I would say, if you're a client, I would say, can I really speak to somebody a little bit, and, you know, a bit more involved in the payroll? So I openly will say, can I bring my implementation team into those sales calls? And I really want to bring them in, because it's really when you get that level of country level expertise really talking to each other. So as a client, you will bring in your payroll teams, your HR teams. What I love to do is bring in localized implementation teams. So I will say to every, you know, clients that I'll speak to, I'll say, we may, you know, you may be speaking to 3 or 4 different providers. Please go and ask them, openly ask them, can I speak to your local teams? I really want to speak to those people who are actually going to be running that implementation, and maybe even your operations teams further down the line. Can you introduce me to them in the sales cycle? And people will ask, why do I want to do that? Because this is a stage where you really find out what level of local expertise that provider really has. So I want to speak to your Spanish implementation, you know, manager. I want to know exactly, you know, what you're going to be able to provide to me, what those processes are. How do you support my tax? How do you do these things? And I think then they can really build that rapport with them. And I always find that it's really nice to introduce them and say, hi, this is Sonia that's going to be running your Spanish implementation. You get to meet her as part of the sales cycle. You get to build that rapport with them as well in the sales cycle. So from a client's perspective, you know what you're going to be expecting. You know that is the person you're going to be meeting. And I think from a client perspective, that local payroll implementation team get to have those early conversations with that client. So if anything jumps out, you're almost finding it early on. And I think just to slightly go on from that, you can really get to find out some of those risks as well very early on, because that local client will be speaking to the local implementation team, and they may just very early on tell you something that you may not find out until 2 or 3 weeks down the line within that implementation. So you get to find it out much earlier as well. So it's a really good idea to bring in those 2 local teams together as early on as possible. And I would say bring them in before you actually sign your contract.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, actually, because I know that a big step in like that you need to kind of uncover before you make a change like this is like really understanding your own payroll. Excuse me. And then having one of those in-country experts can help you understand that in areas where you might have missed, especially if you're someone who's overseeing a multi-country payroll and not necessarily digging in the dirt into the sort of like niche parts in there. So
Yeah.
how do you start that step of really, really understanding your own payroll first?
And I think it really depends on how your payroll is set up. If you're currently running a global payroll and you've got 10 countries, you may not know everything about that as well. It's a really good idea to, within that preparation and within that pre-sales, is to work with your current provider and really try and get down and get as much knowledge as you currently can from your current provider of what services they're also providing to you currently. So I always use the UK as an example, and I'll be like, who's doing maybe the administration of my pension? Am I doing it? Are you doing it? Like, I'm really trying to get down as much information about what they're currently providing for you, so you can use that as a baseline. So when you move over to a new provider, you can say, well, my current provider is already doing this for me. Are you going to be providing at least that for me? And maybe I want a bit more. What else can you provide for me as well? So there is that aspect of it whereby you may not be an actual expert at every single country, but I want to make sure I can understand. And that's part of growing as a payroll is, how much can I actually understand as well? Obviously, the second part of it is to write your SOPs. Now, I will speak to clients within pre-sales and say, do you have an SOP already? No, I don't. And I'll say, good. Don't spend hours, don't spend days and weeks and whatever building out all these SOPs. Just bullet point at the minute what your key dependencies are. And really, what will finance team need from you for each individual country? I need certain reports, I need certain data, and then HR will tell you. So really, say that this is most probably the first time in many, many years that you will actually go in and deep dive and look into your payroll and really start to understand how it currently sits at the minute. And also, what do you want it to look like? And I think that's a really important thing at the minute is, okay, I'm really starting to understand what my payroll looks like now, but also what do I want it to look like? So is there really certain things that maybe take me hours to do? This is a real manual task. And it's something I have to do every Friday. Like, can you take that job off me? Can you automate it for me? Is this part of the services that you're going to provide to me as well? So really start to, I call it wish list. If there is something that you're going, can you do that for me? You may not know that that's actually a task that's already included and they should be doing it for you anyway. So try and get down that information. What does it look like now? But then also, what do I also want it to look like? What can you do for me? What can you provide for me as well at the same time?
Yeah, so I think from what I'm understanding here is that this process takes a lot of that reactive planning that people are doing and turns it more proactive. It's not just about what do we need right now, immediately. It's about the long term and what are we going to need as the business grows, as the business changes, because we can't just get a new system every 6 months, right?
Yeah, and the thing is that, what you don't want to do is sign on that dotted line, find your provider. I love the tech. I love the way that everything looks. This platform is amazing. I love the services as maybe as part of a managed payroll of what you're going to be able to do for me. And then start thinking about where am I going to collect my data from? I've got to, you really don't want to be thinking about it when you're already now starting your implementation. Here's a project plan. You've been given a project plan. You don't want to be saying, wait, I actually don't know what I want out of this. And I don't know where to collect my information. I've got 10 providers. I've not factored in. Maybe there is a list of documents that I need to get. I've not thought about that. And you don't want to, therefore, on day one of starting your project, then have to feel like you're already chasing yourself and you're running behind because you've not done your preparation stages beforehand. So really, that's why, I work with a lot of clients in that pre-sale stage as well to be saying, look, as you're going through contracts, as you're dealing with the legal side of it, have you done any prep work? Have you thought about how it's who's going to be your project manager? Do you have one? You've got 40 countries. Have you brought in a project manager? No. Do you know who who's the key dependencies are who are going to be working with you? How are they going to juggle your local teams, your payroll team, juggling day-to-day aspects of running their normal job and doing a project at the same time? Have you thought about that? Or maybe have you thought about how you're going to roll it out to the business once it's live? And they normally go, I've not started thinking about any of that. Like, okay, so we've still got time. You're not running behind. But if we do better preparation first, beforehand, you might want to say, okay, well, can you just give me a couple of weeks? I'm going to sign with you now, but actually I don't want to start until then because I still want to get my preparation working. So let's work with you in pre-sale side of it before we kick off day one of that project.
Yeah, I think it's really similar with any technology that you're looking to bring in, really. Like the tech that you introduce to your business is only ever as good as the work that you've done beforehand to be able to put into that tech. It's only as good as your data, your preparation, your processes, and your actual understanding of your business, and in this case, your payrolls, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there is a lot of key risks in there as well. You know, when you now start talking about, right, I've done my preparation work and I feel I've got a great understanding, and I now know what my new provider is also going to be like looking at that project timeline as well. Do I agree with that timeline? Can I manage that? Is it realistic? Because you're going to know what your team can manage as well. So you've then got to start thinking about, okay, well, I've done my preparation work now. I'm now looking into this implementation timeline. Is that realistic for me? Is that something that my local teams can keep up with? And I think you've got to be very, honest with your new provider and say, I know you've said you can take me live in this, but I'm not sure that I can keep up with that timeline. So maybe can we adjust it a little bit? Let's be very, very realistic. Let's make sure that we're very, very honest with each other, because I think any provider that looks at your data, looks at your business and goes, this will be amazing. This will be so fast. We can do it perfectly. I'd be like, really? Have you, let's do some really in-depth discovery sessions. So those discovery sessions are very, very vital. And in those discovery sessions, you will have your new provider implementation team working with your SMEs to really find out everything about your payroll. And if that session is a quick half an hour session, I'd be like, I don't think they can learn enough about your payroll in half an hour. I'd be like, how many sessions are we going to do? How many conversations? And maybe they'll say, well, we'll take your initial data and then we'll have a session. And then we're going to do another session. Like, you can't learn somebody's full payroll and everything about how they work in half an hour. So I would say really concentrate on that discovery session for, as when you're in that implementation. Make sure that you might be providing documentation of this is our SOP, or this is just a bullet point of all our processes. Make sure you're handing all that information over. Make sure you're building up a really good rapport with your team as well. And then let's just have really honest, your implementation teams need to flag if they think there is any risks. If they think that you're maybe not going to be able to commit on them deadlines. So really, this is where there's got to build a lot of trust between client, new provider, to really make sure that you're thinking about, are we being honest on whether I can really manage that timeline? Is there any really key risks there as well that we should start flagging? Because let's flag those risks as early as possible. That might be, I'm really struggling to gain this data from my current provider. Okay. Is there anything else that we can do? Is there can you get it from any other places? Have you already saved it down somewhere else? Like, let's have these really honest conversations as early as possible so that we don't put the project at risk as well.
Yeah, that honesty and that communication is really, really important, because chances are if you're going through a change of system, it's because something isn't quite working the way you want it to work. And if you're somebody who doesn't want to give that away at the very beginning of the process, then you're almost setting yourself up to fail. You need to be able to work with, like you said, the pre-sales teams, the sales teams, to put all of those challenges on the table from the very beginning, and really find out how that system can help you.
That's a really good point. I mean, I think anybody from both sides, but if you sit there and say, my team does everything and, it's going to be perfect and we have a very perfect payroll, why are you changing? Be very, very honest. Tell us what isn't. It may be that, the systems that we're using is pretty outdated, and we're looking for something new and exciting, and we want to see new software. We actually have some, some good processes in place, but we want that new level, that next step up of software. Maybe it's because you've got 10 countries and they're all with 10 different providers, and you want to centralize it and globalize it. But tell us what it is that's wrong as well. It may be that you go in, there's just too much manual work. There is a lot of manual, and I need to find a provider now that can automate it. And, without the dreaded people thinking that they're going to lose jobs if they're going to automate everything and use an AI functionality, we're going to lose jobs. No, we just want you to use your time better as well. So really be very, very honest with people when people are asking you and sales teams are asking you, like, what are your main issues that you're having currently at the minute? You're not being disrespectful and slagging off your current provider. You're just saying that things that are just not working for maybe you at the moment.
For sure. Okay, so say you've gone through a list of providers that you think could be a good fit. You have made your decision. You've said, like, yes, this is what we're going for. We're ready. Let's go with the implementation. From your experience, Vic, where would you say that implementations typically start to go wrong?
I think there's a few definitely things where they could go wrong. I think some of it is from a client's point of view, they're not ready. Like say, maybe they've not done that preparation stage. Maybe they've not brought everybody into the conversation. So maybe it would be a matter of only at that stage, do they then start to bring in their payroll teams? I've seen it. I've witnessed discovery calls where that is the first time those payroll teams have met that new provider, and that's it's been a big shock. So I would say, first of all, there is a client readiness point of it. Are you ready? Is everybody in your business aware that you're going to be changing providers? Have you thought about those questions? Have I thought about how it's going to impact them? Have I thought about the training and the rollout and the resources that I'm going to need to be able to run a project of this size? Like say, if you've got 40, 50 countries, which we see quite often, that could be a 2-3 year project. So if on that sort of level, are you ready as a client? Are you really ready to be able to commit and dedicate your time to a project maybe of this size? Are you physically ready yourself? I think one of the other things is, I always call it very unrealistic timelines. It's very on a whim. Hey, I want to change my providers. Can you get me up and running? I've done no preparation work. I just need a new software. And can you get me up and running? And can you do that in 2 months? People will say, yes, I can do it. But have they got the very best experience by running it that fast? Now, I think there'll always be a stage, and I've witnessed it. I've done it myself, where a HR team will come to you and say, we've bought this part of this company and it's an acquisition and it's this, and I really need to be up and running. We've employed somebody next month. There's always going to be that case of we need a very fast, a very urgent go live that is going to be needed. But I think if you can plan that timeline and think, okay, well, there's a lot of things that I need to take into consideration first. And a client will come to you and say, I want you to get me up and running by the 1st of June. Now, as a sales team, you should be very, very honest with them and say, we can get you up and running, but hey, you may not get the parallel runs that you want. Yeah. You may not get really in-depth discovery sessions if you go that fast. And really, are you going to get the very best experience of maybe the training tools that we're able to offer and show you what the platform can fully do for you? Like, and are you yourself ready as a client? Are you ready to go live when you may want to get up and running in 4 weeks? Are you going to get the very best? Yeah, have you done this before? And, in a lot of cases, they'll be like, no, but, such a buddy did who I knew once who did, they said it was great. It was dead easy. Now, I always think I call it lifting and shifting. You can't just take your current processes, data, everything and just go take it from the old provider and drop it into a new one. If you think that is how an implementation works, you're going to be in for a shock, because that will not work and you're going to be prone to failure if that is what your expectations are. So I think really to think about having those expectations of what this implementation will be as well is something that is a major risk. And I think, having a think about how complex your data is. Where am I going to get that data from? Have you cleansed your data? When's the last time that you looked at your data in your current platform? Is it all up to date? Have I got all the information that my new provider is going to want? Or is it all held in several different softwares? HR teams have got paper files here. It's held somewhere, got one country here. What level of complexity am I going to have to do to get it all into this new platform as well? So there's a lot really to consider.
For sure. Vic, obviously payroll isn't, we hear it all the time, it's not just about numbers, it's about people. So at what point during the decision to change systems do you communicate that with the wider workforce?
That's a really good question. And I think, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this. I think I would always say it's definitely within, you've made that decision. You've signed that contract. I would say that's too early. You really need to know how your implementation is going as well. And if you're working with, I would really hope that a lot of providers are really rolling that into that implementation plan as well. And that project plan is really, at what point do we think about how we're going to roll that out to the rest of the business? Because you want to get their excitement, you want to get their buy-in as well. Maybe, your workforce are the ones who have brought a few issues to you. Yeah. Hey, look, from the employee portal side of it, I can't really see my payslip this way. And I'd love to be able to have these different aspects to it as well. So you really want to generate that excitement as well. But I would certainly say it's partway through that implementation and project timeline that you would really want to factor that in. Now, you don't want to do it too early, and you don't want to do it like a week before your payslips are due to be put into a new platform. So I would certainly say build it into your project timeline and plan. Maybe sort of like 12 weeks beforehand, depending on how long your project plan is. Maybe as you're going through those parallel runs, you're happy with the data migration aspect of it, and you're like, we've got no issues. We're very happy with the process. But when you start looking at the training, so how are you going to train the people who are going to be using the platform? I think that's about the stage where you're going, right, okay, now we're starting to train the HR teams, the payroll teams, the finance teams, how to use the platform. Now we really need to consider how we're going to roll it out. And that could be, first of all, you're going to be looking at emails of how you're going to roll it out to the business. Hey, exciting news. We've partnered with this, who's going to be our new HR and payroll maybe provider, and drum up a bit of excitement. All these things that you've been asking for, we're now going to be able to provide for you. Great excitement. Shortly, you're going to receive some training. Shortly, you'll be able to get a view of what this new platform looks like, how it's going to be able to help you, and you're just gaining that excitement. So really, I would say, really ask to make sure that that is rolled into your implementation plan so that you're not leaving it to the last minute, which is, oh, hey, your payslips are going to be coming out on Friday. We haven't even tested whether everybody can access it. Do they all have the right logins? Are they comfortable with it? Like, you want to give them enough time to be able to play around with it beforehand, because the last thing that you want is getting to that go live, that first payroll, and then your payroll teams receiving all of these notifications that I can't log in.
Yeah.
So I would really say, let's get that into the project, into the timeline, so that they can really start to prepare for it early, and everybody knows, are they going to your local payroll team questions, or actually are they going to go to your provider with the questions? Even that is a decision that needs to be made. That needs to be made within the project. Who's going to take the queries? Is it you? Is it the provider?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And I think making time to have that communication going out is really, really important, because you do get people who don't check their emails regularly. Sometimes I wish I was one of those people. But if they don't see that email come through the first time, then one day in 6 months' time, they're going to want to check their payslip. They might not be somebody that checks it every single month. And they're going to have no idea where to find that. They're going to log into the old system. It's going to be like, boop, you don't exist.
Yes. Yeah.
And that causes instant panic.
That is a really interesting point. And I think it's really to understand as well is, what is the nature of that business? I've worked with a lot of manufacturing companies where they'll say, like, we've used paper. We've used paper for a lot of time. Well, people don't have email addresses. They don't like it's just not something that they like to do.
Yeah.
Okay, how are we going to get around this so that everybody can maybe input their how do they request annual leave if they're not checking their emails? So this is all part, again, of your project plan of how we're going to deal with this. If they're in a mind, do I need to find a solution for this? This is where you bring in your pre-sales. It's where you bring in your solutions team. We need to find a solution for the fact that maybe this is manufacturing. Maybe they're not even allowed phones on site. Okay, so if they're not allowed their phone on site, how do we get around that? And I've worked with people where we've put hubs in place instead. So there is docking stations where they've been out, this is all part of you as a provider and this is the bit I love, is problem solving. You've got to find solutions to this. Like, one size will not fit all. You can't just be like, well, it's okay. Everybody can log in on their phone. You can see this lovely platform that we've got. And that's how you're going to view it, because that will not fit for every single client that you work with. Manufacturing might be different. You may have remote workers, and therefore how you're going to roll it out to a remote worker may be different than if you're working in person, where you can say, right, well, as a manager, you're going to hold training sessions in a boardroom and you're going to roll it out that way. So again, you've got to be able to work as a provider of understanding your client enough and their needs, of how we're going to train them, make sure that they're using the platform. Do they know how to access it? Have they had the right training as well?
Yeah. I think it's a really nice piece as well for that visibility of payroll. We all know we're an industry that doesn't get seen every single day in the business by every single person, despite the fact that you literally touch the lives of every single person every month. But communicating that you are doing that rollout and communicating why gives people that opportunity to, don't get me wrong, not everyone is going to be like, oh, that's so kind. But there are going to be people that are like, you know what? XYZ and payroll really listened. Like, I've had this problem. They've taken that into consideration, and this is the outcome. And there will be people that start to understand that and understand more and more that payroll is there to like enhance everybody's role in the business, not just do the payroll once a month,
and that is something that, again, I don't just keep on saying it's about the preparation, but have you gone around and asked your employees, what do they want out of it? Yeah. Some of them might just say, I just want a mobile app. I just want a mobile app. If you can find a provider who can do that, or an easy way out to submit my expenses. Like, do they have an expenses as part of their platform? Maybe that is the one request that you as a business, you have a lot of expenses that goes through. Like, every single day, it might be something. Do they have is that part of what their product, their tech stack is, that they've got an expenses platform? Because that is just one of the things that I want. Okay. But if you make that wrong decision and the one that you choose doesn't have that, that could impact 50, 60% of your workforce. And they've gone, oh, we've waited years. You've finally chosen a provider. And the one thing that actually the majority of people needed was the expenses, because the person who's making the decision aren't the ones that are mainly impacted by all this. It's just that one or two person's opinion. Did you go out to the rest of your business and say to them, like, hey, we're thinking about, like, would be a great conversation. If everybody really went out to their business and said, like, what is the main gripes that you've got? Well, actually, it's expenses. Actually, it stalls. It's not very user friendly when I'm putting in my sickness. Okay. Right, well, we know they're the key, some really key points, or the top 10 things that people are asking for. If you involve a lot more, you're going to get, people are more satisfied at the end of it, of going, we think you've made a really great choice. Thank you, payroll. Thank you for really thinking and taking into consideration, like, who's making the decisions here. But if you're involving more people into that as well, you're more likely to get the satisfaction, at the end of it, of people going, thank you. And for any payroll person, for somebody to say thank you to you, it's like one of the best days, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that really, all of this really, really shows why that kind of preparation time, that 6 months before, is absolutely vital. What about once it's done? So you've mentioned that go live isn't the end. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, and I've said this a few times. And people normally, really? And I'll say to them that your go live day isn't the finale. This isn't the end of your project. When you sit there and say, you know, that very first payroll, you know, it's the celebration. We are now live. Yeah, it's a massive accomplishment. It's really, because in a way that does feel like the end of your project. My implementation is complete. Not really, not necessarily, no. You will have a, you know, fingers crossed, you've got a built-in hypercare period in there as well, which is where, you know, you're still working with your implementation teams. I tend to think that your go live is also the beginning of that stabilization period as well. It's not the end. It's, in some ways, it's the start of this as well, because you cannot measure your full success on that one payroll and on that go live. I think it should be a measurable criteria. It should be part of that data, but it's actually the 6 months after it. It's this, what I consider a real stabilization period as well. And that really defines how successful you've been in your implementation about the next 6 months as well. Because in a lot of cases, you're moving different teams. So you're moving from, as a client, I've now spent 6 months with, depending on how long your project is, I could have spent 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months building a project, doing an implementation with you. And then I'm going to hand you over to another team. Now I'm going to hand you over to operations. And these are the people who are going to be running your payroll every single day, day in and day out. And sometimes this is where that change in, you feel a change. Well, implementation did it this way, and operations teams are now feeling they're doing it a slightly different way. I've got a drop in service, maybe not a drop, but a change in that service as well. So you've got to understand and learn a new team and how they're going to be working with you. And also, was the handover between implementation and operations, was there a really clear, defined handover? Do they understand everything about maybe how that implementation went? Did they hand over information about the parallel runs? Did we have issues in that? So really that handover between implementation and operations, you want to feel that that was seamless as well. And then you can really start to monitor the data and how successful each and every payroll is after that. Because if you're going and saying, okay, we're going to measure error rates, we're going to measure how many changes that if somebody provided my payroll, I did a preview and they're missing data. I provided a bonus and it wasn't, I didn't see it in my final gross to net. If I have to keep on going back and telling you you're missing things, it's not really as successful as I would like it to be. Or pay slips are published and then you find errors. There's something that's slightly wrong here. So really those 6 months afterwards is also to judge how clear and how successful the implementation is and how successful that changeover is now moving to that new provider in those first 6 months. So I would always say that go live isn't the grand finale. It isn't, I'm go live, my payroll is perfect now. I would be measuring at least 6 months after that and then judging, then I can really define how successful that implementation has really been for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I've had that conversation several times similarly on the recruitment side. So we often work with clients who are going through a system change like this, and potentially they'll look to bring someone in to support that implementation while their current payroll manager or head of payroll runs business as usual. Sometimes it's the other way around. They'll bring someone in who can manage the operational side and the current payroll team will move on to that project. Now, what I've seen several times is somebody saying like, okay, well, we would want somebody on a fixed term contract, for example, from here to here, because our go live is on the 1st of June. So the contract can end then.
Yes.
And what sometimes isn't considered is that, okay, that person is going to plan their own working life, their own follow-up contracts to align with the end date. And if your project doesn't run as smoothly as you planned, or like you said, like you need that all-important aftercare piece, you need somebody there who understood the implementation, can then pick up any problems that appear after that go live day, and who was part of the project the whole time. If there's something wrong, what do you do?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you see this so often And I will say to people, in the nicest way, please don't end their contract on that go live date.
Yeah.
Please do not end that contract on that go live date, because you've not stabilized that payroll yet. You've gone live. And really, to actually fully understand that payroll, it has to be live. I need a full processing month afterwards. Like, okay, we're live now. What does that look like? What does my payroll calendar look like? And you've been supported throughout a lot of it by the implementation team. The implementation team are holding your hand throughout the parallel runs, throughout that first go live month. And now you've got to embed it. You've got to stabilize it yourself now. And you still need the support from that project manager. That project manager is most probably the person who is most knowledgeable on that platform. I know I've said it a few times, that have you written your SOPs? No. Well, that's what your project manager will most probably be doing, so that everybody else in the business really understands how to use that as well, and what we're all responsible for as well. But I would always say, please don't let go of your project manager at go live, because what you'll find is that you might have a hiccup in month 2. Something might not be right. Somebody's going to say, I know we agreed to do it this way, but now that I'm getting really used to the platform and I'm getting more confident and I'm playing around with it a bit more, do you think we could have X? And they'll put a request in. Now, if you let your project manager go, they're like, well, who do we go to, and where have we been contacting? And, and it starts to slow down a bit. You're always going to have those level of requests within that first 6 months. Now, you decide how long you want that project manager on board for. You may be very lucky, and if you've got several countries, that project manager is going to be with you throughout all of those countries as well. But yeah, absolutely, you see that so often.
Yeah,
that somebody will just let their project manager go live because that's the end of the project and we're done, and really isn't.
Yeah, and there's those hidden costs in there as well of, like, if you've planned, okay, well, my contractor, my project manager is going to end on this day, and it does go wrong, then all of a sudden your budget that you planned for this project is completely out of the window. You're then having to extend a contractor that you weren't expecting to extend. You're also spending more and more on fixing some of those issues. You're spending more on almost like making things better for the rest of the team, where you're trying to rectify any errors, all because you didn't kind of build in that risk management piece into your process in the beginning.
Absolutely. Could you imagine if you have an amazing project manager? And I think, people will ask me, like, do I need a project manager? I feel that, especially when you've got a lot of countries and a lot of processes and, a lot of things going on with the project, yes, they're invaluable. They really are. And you can really feel the difference of working with a client that has an extremely strong project manager who has done this time and time again, because they're bringing their knowledge as well from all the other clients that they've worked with. They're bringing it to you, and hey, this went wrong. It was a risk. I know I'm going to look out for this now. So if you find an amazing project manager, they're absolutely worth their weight in gold. They are. But what you'll also find is that if you say to them, okay, we're going to go live and we don't need you from March, they more than likely will have their next project already in the pipeline ready to go. Could you imagine them saying, I'm really sorry, I can't extend because I've now got my next client I'm working with. You will find that time and time again that they will have their next project ready. If you've not factored in that hypercare stage or that stabilization period, you could, and your project has maybe, extended a bit longer. Maybe the timeline has been pushed a little bit, and they're not with you for that go live month because you've not factored it into your costings, and they simply can't extend. I would hate to be in that situation, because that could really put a risk to your project.
Yeah, I feel stressed while it's like.
You feel stressed thinking about that now.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about where an implementation can go wrong, but what does a successful implementation look like?
I think looking at, what's going to be a success, what's going to be a really strong implementation, is really sitting there and considering, did I really plan things well? Like, have I got really realistic, like, timelines in place? Am I being realistic in that? Have I got things like a really clear rollout plan? So these are the things that when you're talking to your sales teams, when you're talking to pre-sales and speaking to implementation, you really want to make sure, and I know we've spoken before about, making sure that preparation stage is also right. But to be really successful, I think you've got to go in that with very, very clear expectations of what is going to happen over those next few months as well. So do I have a really clear timeline? Do I know what's going to be expected of me, my team, the rest of our business? From what that project plan. So it could either be a timeline to say, I know what's going to happen over the next few months, or it could be a really detailed project plan as well, where you're going to know, who are those key people that you're going to bring into those calls, into those sessions. So do I have a clear and really strong, clear rollout plan? Have I engaged all of the key stakeholders? So have I made sure that those key people, maybe my finance teams, my HR, my payroll, the legal teams, my IT teams, are they all bought into this? Do they all know that this project is going ahead? Do they all know that they're going to be involved in it? And maybe by working on that timeline, you know that your IT teams might need to be involved here, or might need HR to come and help us in training. So have we prepared for all that as well? And I can't stress enough making sure that you've had a really strong discovery call as well. Now, we've mentioned about setting those expectations that, do I really feel that if somebody was going to give me a discovery call, and this is really where your provider is going to really dig deep with you and ask you lots of payroll questions. They want to know your processes. They want to know what it looks like now, maybe what those struggles are. They want to find out if there is any risks as early as possible and have a really good discovery. And for them to come away with it, and you to come away with it feeling that you've really delved deep and you really feel that they've got a really now clear understanding of what your payroll looks like. If they're going to do that in 20, 30 minutes, they're not going to get a really clear idea.
Yeah.
I've been there, I've done that. I've been on those calls, but I've also been involved myself when you want to explain to somebody what your payroll is about, that's going to take more than 30 minutes. So really to set those expectations, if you feel that you've not really got everything over, that is what your payroll looks like now, your processes, your procedures, who are those key, what those key dependencies are. If you feel that you've not really felt like you've got all that across in that conversation, ask for another one. Can I go into it? Can I provide you, write some notes, hand it over to them, give them an SOP? But that discovery is really, in some cases, what's really going to make or break it.
Yeah, for sure. And like from the conversation we're having, it's really, really clear that the really important parts of this is the preparation. So obviously that's 6 months before, and the communication piece.
Yes.
So, if you do have areas where you're having a little bit of trouble, or you've got some bits in your payroll that aren't running as smoothly as you might want them, is having that honesty and that clarity with yourself, with your teams, and also with the new provider as well, to make sure that you're starting off on a really clear note. And obviously that communication piece ongoing as well, to make sure that
I think you're absolutely right. I think if you really want to sit there and think, there's no point in saying your payroll is perfect. My payroll is perfect. There is nothing wrong with it. It's great. We just want to change providers. There'll be a reason why you want to change. So let's get all those, let's air everything right at the very beginning. If it is for the fact that you want to do a lot more automations, or it's just that everything that you're doing is very, very manual and it's very time consuming what it is, or you've got some risks and maybe it's the current provider isn't quite doing what you want them to do at the beginning, or maybe that your internal teams are generally struggling and they're saying, we're really struggling doing this task ourselves. We need in-house, we need people in country to be able to help us, because I'm based in the UK and I don't understand that US payroll like it. I don't get what they're doing. I really need that in-country expertise to be able to help me. Be very honest about that and air it as early as possible. So either in the sales cycles and the sales teams, and say, I know I've got some concerns. I know these are my problem areas. This is what I think might be a risk. Tell them as early as possible. Make sure it's out there right at the very beginning, rather than leaving it till it's almost a little bit too late.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Vic, you have done this hundreds of times.
Yeah.
But there's going to be people watching today who have never, ever done a new implementation. They have never picked a new provider. They've never gone through that process. So tell me, if somebody is about to start an implementation, what is the first few things they should do tomorrow?
I think some of the things that they should be looking at first of all is, do you know your own payroll? Do you know as much of it as you possibly can? You know, you may have a provider who's currently running that for you. Do you know your current payroll? And if not, try and map that out. Try and get it down sometimes out of people's heads, because you may have, you know, somebody who's sat there who's processed it for a few years and they know everything. And that is a risk in itself. Just one person maybe knowing that payroll. Let's get that down. You know, let's start documenting what your payroll actually looks like. So what is the state? What does it look like now? And maybe have you actually thought about what you want it to look like in the end? Because yes, it is about the tech and the tech that you might be providing, but you might want to just generally sit there and say, as a team, we want a better employee experience. Physically going in the platform, we want them to, that's something that we really want. So what are those key, and I know I've said it a few times, what's your wish list? What is it that somebody in your teams, in your company really desires, and saying out of, you know, the whole reason why we're wanting to change providers is we really want to get out of it this. So go around and get as many people involved in it as you can. Let them know, those key teams, hey, finance, we're thinking about changing providers. Is there something that you really want out of this? Absolutely, yeah. You know, we really want our general ledgers. We have issues with general ledger. Great. We'll make sure that we find someone who can really solve that problem. So really involve those key stakeholders as well in it. Let them know that this is something that you're thinking about doing and you're thinking about changing your providers. Is there something that they absolutely want out of it? There is no point in me being the only person that is choosing the provider, and it's only my wish list and it's not everybody else's, because you're still going to end up with unhappy teams. So make sure that you're looking at your processes. Make sure that you're involving those key people that are involved in there as well. I would say to involve in it your local payroll teams. Make sure that your local teams and your local teams who are running your payroll at the minute, please try and involve them in that sales process with whoever your new provider or the providers that you think, when you get down to maybe those last two, bring them into it, get them involved.
Yeah.
Is this a software that you think you would, you know, really enjoy working with? Is it going to give you everything that you like from it as well? And it really gives them the opportunity to speak to the potential new providers, implementation team, get them being familiar with that team, thinking, yeah, I'd really like to work with them. Am I coming away from it feeling confident that they're going to be able to give me everything that I need out of a new platform, but also as well is maybe that as a managed payroll, they're going to be able to provide that service for me that I need as well. And make sure that you're comfortable with things like, you know, your current timeline. Are you going in there with a very specific timeline that you need to be live? Is it that you're making a decision maybe in November, you want to go live in a UK payroll in April? That's your choice. So think about those timelines that you want to build into that. Think about the level of data beforehand. Have you looked at your own data recently? And yes, that might be the first chance where you're looking at what my payroll currently looks like. But when did you last look at your clear data as well? So has it been cleaned recently? Has it been validated? Have you got everybody's names and addresses in the right orders? Or actually, is it all held in those local payroll softwares and centralized? It's all out of date. If so, that's a task in itself that will need to be done before you even start thinking about starting a new project.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that you touched on that employee experience piece there as well, because we say it all the time, but the payroll does touch every single person in the business. And at the end of the day, like, getting paid for everyone is really, really important. So making sure that you have that feedback from your teams as well when you're making these decisions is super, super important, because what matters to you as, you know, the head of payroll or the project lead isn't necessarily the same as what matters to some of the other people in the business who are being paid, who are using that system to receive their paychecks, to put their holiday in, to manage their expenses, things like that. So getting that feedback from your teams is like really critical, right?
Yeah, can you imagine working for somewhere and it being payday? And they go onto that platform, they go onto that new portal and they're able to go into it and the pay slips don't load. It's your go live month and it doesn't load. Instantly, they're going to be going, what have you signed up for? And especially the person who is the champion, maybe the person who's championing to move to this new payroll, they're like, everything's going great. And that first payday, the pay slips don't arrive. Oh, they're wrong. that instantly you're going to put doubt into everybody. And it's going to take a lot to really build that confidence back up again that, no, we've chosen the right one. It's right. So you really want to make sure that, you know, the one that you're choosing is going to be the right provider for you. But also that you really trust in what they're going to be able to do, what they're going to be able to provide for you, because it can make or break it. That you're going to get that feedback and it's going to go like wildfire straight away. Oh, did you get it wrong? Did you see that you couldn't log into it as well? So you've really got to think about, it isn't just you as that payroll team, you know, like we're choosing this. No, you're choosing it on behalf of everybody that's in that company as well. And you're going to make sure that what their needs are isn't just you as maybe the person who is inputting the payroll and validating it and checking it, but actually what sort of experience are they going to get from it as well? Because that is what they're expecting. They're expecting perfection. They're expecting it to be right. And they're going to trust you to do that and make that choice on their behalf.
Yeah. And it turns that, you know, you can have it one of two ways. You could either have thousands of angry people calling you, being really mad and really upset, and like rightfully so, because something's gone wrong with their pay that they worked for. Or you can have a few people, and it definitely won't be in the thousands, but you can have a few people that have really recognized that this new system has solved a problem that they have been crying out to have solved. They've sat there and thought, you know what? So and so in payroll has genuinely listened to me, made a change, and that change has just made my life so much easier.
Yeah. And that is a fantastic feeling. You know, when you sit there and you speak to people and you go, oh, we really said we wanted something a lot easier. We wanted something easy where I could just input my sickness, input my request for a day's holiday. I just want something that I can just literally go on, click a few buttons, and that's what you've brought to us. You really, you know, as a payroll professional, it's like, yeah, I did that. We worked together. We worked in this fantastic team. We really listened to what everybody wants. And I really feel that what we've chosen, and working with all the teams and working with, you know, the employees of what they wanted. Yeah, we've really delivered it. And it's a fantastic feeling, you know, to get there, and you hear it from clients as well. The feedback when, you know, from a provider's point of view, when they come to you and go, it was amazing. Yeah, you gave us everything that we wanted. You actually brought things that we didn't know we needed, and we were a bit wowed as some of the extras that we didn't know you could even do. It is a great feeling. It is a great feeling. So yeah, it's really about listening to people and sitting there and making sure you can try and solve. You're not going to solve everybody's problem, but really to try and get everybody's. It's very good.
Yeah, I bet it's such a nice feeling. Well, Vic, look, we are so close to the end of the session. And I've spent a good hour asking you questions. And I wondered if there is any, like, one question you would ask people to just keep asking themselves throughout a process like this.
I think I would keep asking that one thing. Am I being realistic? Am I being realistic in maybe the timelines that I want to do this in? Do I really think, can I really cope in doing an implementation in 6 weeks? Have I got the resources in place in my own team to be able to do this? Because we've got to do maybe an end of year. Maybe it's your pay cycle. You know, I've got to do rewards. Can I really do that in 6 weeks? Or did I promise somebody else in the business that I can do it? Am I being realistic in my timelines? Am I being realistic in the costs as well? Did I think I could get it for X, and actually when it came back, it was double what I thought? Was I really being realistic in that first, you know, expectation of what I thought that was really going to cost as well? And to be really sitting there saying, can I really take all this on board? Do I actually need a project manager instead? Somebody to be able to assist me? Was I being realistic in everything that I was hoping to be able to achieve? And if so, there is nothing wrong in sitting there at any of this and saying, do you know what? I know I said I wanted to go live in 6 weeks, but actually I'm taking quite a lot on all at the same time as well. I didn't quite, until we started this, I didn't quite realize everything that's involved, and I wanted it to be perfect. So I know I told you 6 weeks, can we just move out that deadline a little bit more? Can we change that go live date? Because actually I want a bit more. I want a bit more training. I want to make sure that all my data is perfect. So maybe I wasn't being realistic. So that is the one question I was keep on just having to think about as you're going through this process. Am I being realistic in what we can actually achieve in the timeline? with the cost, maybe with the resources that I think can I do all this on my own? Or actually, am I going to need to bring in more people, because this is something that people don't do every year. They may do it every 3, 5, or maybe every 10 years. So let's not rush this. Let's really make sure, am I being realistic in everything that I want to be able to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sitting here nodding along, being like, yeah, you know what? There's definitely times that I could have stopped and thought, Natalie, are you being realistic? I think there's definitely going to be people watching who have either been through this process and are almost like listening back and remembering how they did it, thinking, was I realistic at that time? And also people who are at the very beginning of that journey, who have now received that advice from you and are going to go on, hopefully, to have a super, super smooth journey in their implementation, because they are able to stop and think, am I ready? Am I realistic? And also to have that kind of preparation and that proper discovery and a proper deep understanding of their payroll and their processes and their teams and what's actually needed from a new system. It's not just, is this pretty? Does it have the biggest name and the shiniest logo? And is the sales team telling me, yeah, we can do everything? It's...
Yeah, I know we said it before, didn't we? We were saying about warning, what are those red flags as well? And if somebody comes to you and says, I can do all of this, yes, it would be perfect, it'd be amazing. We can get it done. I can get it done in 3 weeks. No, you don't need any extra resources, and I can cut down all the price, and I can do all of this for you. Just have that thought. Is that realistic? Are they really going to be able to deliver all this? And I've never spoke to any of their payroll team, and I've never met their implementation team, and I've never met anybody from their pre-sales team. But I've got one person telling me that they can do all of this with me. Is that realistic? Is that really what I'm going to get? Or actually, can I meet some more people? Can I speak to your implementation? Can I speak to somebody? Can I, speak to your other clients as well? And if you're not getting all of that, just think, is that a realistic? Are you really going to get all of that out of your next project?
Yeah, Vic, I think that's such a nice way to end the session and to just put that question in people's minds for not only projects like this, but any project moving forwards, really. So look, I just wanted to say thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. You are an absolute genius in everything you do. I always love catching up with you.
Thank you.
And as soon as we started planning this conversation for today's PayFest, I was absolutely delighted. I was like, this is such a key thing that is so underrated. Like, nobody thinks about that 6 months before. Nobody thinks about that 6 months after. Or maybe they think about it, but everything that's talked about is implementation time, go live, blah, blah, blah. We don't hear about the befores and afters. So thank you for bringing that to light for everyone who's watching. And for me as well. I literally love learning from you. Fabulous.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you. Today's been a great session. I really, honestly, looking forward to watching all the other sessions from PayFest. I don't know how everybody's doing this over 24 hours, but I think it's amazing what you're all doing. Really looking forward to watching. Is it realistic that I don't know? I don't know. We'll ask when we've got through all this full day.
Bless you. Vic, thank you so much. To everyone watching, thank you for joining us. Please stay tuned for the rest of the sessions. And I'll see you all soon.
See you soon. Bye.